Let's take a closer look at this with James Hodson, who's co-founder of Economists for Ukraine and chairman of the non-profit AI for Good. Welcome to DW. We've seen that the grain exports are hugely important to Ukraine. If we could get this deal to work, what sort of difference would that make?
Well, 60 million tons of grain is a lot of grain, right? And it's certainly an important component of Ukraine's budgetary sources. But beyond Ukraine, this deal is far more important for others. Firstly, if it were to be fully exported, it would relieve some of the pressure on global food markets. Now, not all of the pressure, but it would make a difference. And second, if you think the food crisis that Russia has manufactured in Ukraine is bad this year, then you're not going to like what it would be like next year, when Ukrainian farmers won't have the incentives, they won't have invested in the seeds and chemicals, as was just pointed out, they won't have sown their fields, they won't have the equipment and labor necessary to harvest it, and the costs and uncertainty around occupation and the ability to export would be too high. So it's extremely important that we get this to work in some way in order to avert an even bigger disaster next year.
Okay, that's very clear. So we have the deal signed on Friday, and then the port of Odessa bombed by Russia on Saturday. Do you anticipate this deal actually holding?
So in war, neither side believes the assurances of the other unless there's a mechanical guarantee, right? Something that actually prevents Russia from breaking its promises. The deal that was signed by Russia with the UN and Turkey doesn't actually provide any mechanical guarantees to Ukraine that Russia will allow Ukrainian grain to make it to its final destination. And it doesn't provide any way to harm Russia if they don't hold their end. It's what we would term in economics. Right, it's what we would term an incomplete contract, right? It serves a primarily cosmetic purpose for the current objectives of the Russian propaganda machine, especially in Africa, but I don't think the Kremlin really values it beyond the paper it's written on.
Because this is, when you look at it from the outside, you wonder, well, where is the benefit to Russia of helping Ukraine re-establish a major export income source to help Ukraine's war effort against Russia? It just doesn't seem to make sense.
No, so it doesn't make sense for Russia to allow Ukraine to sell its grain. However, a deal to allow Ukraine to export grain allows Russia to frame its involvement as more of a benevolent actor, both freeing its kind of vicious, dangerous neighbor of Nazis and trying to ensure global food markets remain stable. Now, Russia's leadership holds no concern for the people who are starving and will starve as a result of their unilateral actions. But they are interested in co-opting and making certain nations in Africa and the Middle East more dependent on these trade relationships. And this deal really does serve that particular policy objective that Russia has right now.
Right, and Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov is in Africa at the moment, securing those relationships. Does Ukraine need to be proactive in the same way, given that that Africa is a big grain export market for Russia and for Ukraine?
Well, it's very difficult, right, for Ukraine to match the kind of relationships and deep involvement that Russia has had in the African continent over the past, 40, 50 years. And so as a result, Russia's narrative does find a lot of people who are willing to take it at face value, and if not to believe in it, to at least use it to their best advantage. Now, you have to remember, a lot of African nations are very friendly towards Russia, both due to economic and education ties, but also because from a sort of market perspective, these countries operate in a very similar way to Russia. That is, large countries subservient to centralized cities and bringing resources into those cities. And so the leadership also have a certain closeness with the way that Russia operates.
They speak the same economic language, effectively. That's very interesting and very clear. Thank you. James Hodson, co-founder of Economists for Ukraine. Thank you.
Thank you.